Tonight, a new weapon.
We are ready to roll out this vaccine without delay.
The FDA set to authorize Johnson & Johnson's vaccine for emergency use in the fight against COVID-19. And big tech censorship.
It's not just big government that can be a threat to our liberties.
As Congress prepares to vote on the controversial Equality Act. Plus,
my goal is for us to be a sanctuary state.
Georgia's governor wants to protect houses of worship from pandemic lockdowns. And
parents and teachers often don't even realize that there's a problem.
The dark side of the internet, sexual exploitation on the rise as internet use skyrockets during the pandemic. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
More firepower in the fight against COVID-19. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Tara Mergener. Tonight, the FDA confirming the single-dose vaccine from Johnson & Johnson is effective.
That moves the vaccine one step closer to authorization. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now. Ben, clearly a boost to the Biden administration, which pledged 100 million vaccinations in its first 100 days.
Yeah, John and Tara, definitely a boost. That is, once approved, Johnson & Johnson would seek to deliver 20 million doses by the end of March. The White House is also looking to increase doses to the state. Their goal is 14.5 million doses of the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine each week.
We are at war with this virus.
Johnson & Johnson is about to join the pandemic fight. This after the Food and Drug Administration reported the one-dose vaccine not only protects people, it also carries no serious safety concerns.
If an EUA is issued, we anticipate allocating 3 to 4 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine next week.
Vaccine makers tell Congress to expect a big jump in deliveries over the coming months. And the three main manufacturers insist enough doses will be provided that most Americans can get their shots by this summer.
We're working with the company to accelerate the pace and time frame by which they deliver the full 100 million doses, which is required by contract by the end of June.
The economy is also showing signs of bouncing back as cases and hospitalizations decline. In New York, Knicks and Net fans are returning to Madison Square Garden and Barclays Center, both at 10% capacity.
We continue to see trends heading in the right direction. In the past week, average daily cases declined 25% to approximately 64,000 cases per day. This is slightly less than the summer peak of 67,000 daily cases reported last July. While this is good news, cases still remain high.
Now, to put things into perspective, 13% of the U.S. population, around 44 million people, have received at least one dose of the COVID vaccine. John, Tara?
Some good news to report there. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Thanks, Ben. Now to a hearing on a Capitol that's stirring up some controversy.
Lawmakers are taking a close look at the role media play in disseminating disinformation.
CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips joins us now with more. Eric?
John, Tara, the hearing was dubbed Fanning the Flames, and it was billed as a way to study disinformation and extremism in the media. But some say it was a thinly veiled attempt at censorship of conservative media.
If the majority was really interested in a meaningful dialogue, you wouldn't schedule a hyper-partisan hearing to shame and blame. You wouldn't be sending letters pressuring private companies to block conservative media outlets. I'm not only disappointed.
2 Democratic members of Congress sent a letter to Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos Monday, wanting to know why Amazon's Fire Stick for TV carries conservative programs like Fox News and Newsmax. At the same time, Amazon stopped offering a book by Dr. Ryan Anderson, which challenged progressive ideas about gender. Then, D. James Kennedy Ministries was recently forced off of Lifetime because of so-called controversial pro-life views.
And the ultimatum we received was basically, your programming going forward must have all non-controversial topics in order to continue to air on our network. You know, if you're a biblical Christian these days, there's not much in the culture that's not considered controversial. Everything from gender.
Witnesses who testified today represented a broad range of ways in terms of how to counter disinformation in the media.
Congress cannot and should not regulate journalism in defiance of the First Amendment. But here's what we can do. Don't book liars or advance lies. Cover the fact that lies and propaganda are being disseminated, but do not book people to lie on your show because it elevates them and presents a lie as another side.
I admit that I may be a relic in my views, but I continue to believe that the greatest protection against bad speech is better speech. Those seeking limits often speak of free speech like it's a swimming pool that must be monitored and carefully controlled for purity and safety. I view it more as a rolling ocean. It is indeed dangerous, but it's also majestic and inspiring. Its immense size allows for a natural balance. Free speech allows false.
Kristen Danielle Urquiza also testified today. Her father died from COVID, and she chiefly blames former President Trump because she says her father trusted President Trump, and she says he promoted disinformation. And while she says the media is definitely complicit, especially cable news media, she says they did not pull the trigger, but, quote, they drove the getaway car after someone else pulled the trigger of the gun that was held against my father's head. John and Tara.
CBN's Eric Phillips. Thanks so much, Eric. Harold Feld works at the Public Knowledge Group here in Washington, D.C., where he serves as Senior Vice President. Harold, thanks for joining us today. You just heard what Eric was reporting on. Can you speak to the significance of media disinformation and how difficult will it be to limit its reach?
Well, this is a problem that has long been challenging. It goes back, in fact, to the first presidential campaigns where you had the Thomas Jefferson feeding information to his favorite newspapers and the Federalists feeding information to their favorite newspapers. So there's always been this tension. Regulating it has generally done more harm than good, because human beings are very bad at making neutral judgments about who's lying and who's telling the truth. We like to think, well, facts are facts, and that they speak for themselves, except that a lot of times, or rather, the universe of facts that are just plain facts, like the sun is shining outside, is very limited, as opposed to opinions about more complicated things that we report on news. So this is a very hard problem. We can't deny that we're seeing greater polarization across our society, that social media acts as an accelerant to all of this. So whereas it used to be that, you had some viewers of the nightly news over here and some viewers, listeners to a radio station here, now things get passed around and everything is moving at an accelerated pace. So we see a very real problem, but not a lot of good solutions are presenting themselves.
Harold, this is interesting. A Forbes report analyzing court documents in the January 6th breach of the Capitol shows it is Facebook that's mainly to blame for the riots, but Parler, an alternative social platform for conservatives, took the brunt of the blame. What do you say to that?
Well, this shows how complicated the whole ecosystem has become. Parler is an example of a place where people would say, well, if you don't like Twitter and their policies and Facebook and their policies, well, go off and build your own social network site. So people did. A lot of conversations took place on there that were echoed in other social media sites. A lot of people are unhappy because the most active conversations were on Parler. So the question is, what do you do about that? Some people react in kind of a moral panic, saying like, oh my God, people talked about bad things on Parler, so we have to shut down the room where these conversations are going on. We at Public Knowledge are saying we shouldn't shut down those rooms, but there should be responsibilities of platforms to share information about safety that might threaten public safety with relevant authorities. In fact, if the relevant authorities had been paying attention to what we saw on social media, they would have handled the events of January 6th in a very different way. So it's very easy to blame the places where the conversations happen, but we need to take a much broader view of how to deal with the problems that are being created by radicalization.
Harold, in a sentence or two, in the short time that we have, along those lines, there's a lot of outcry around conservative censorship. Are conservatives the only one affected, or are there other groups?
Well, in fact, one of the things that you will hear a lot of progressives say is, be careful what you wish for, guys, because every law is going to cut both ways. I think that conservatives are feeling attacked now because the focus in recent days has been on conservative media. I think that there have certainly been times when liberals, Black Lives Matter activists, others have felt that their views were the ones who were being censored. What we really need are neutral rules that give people real control and choices, and which weed out real threats and harassment rather than trying to pick and choose specific speakers as good or bad.
Harold, we are out of time, unfortunately. Harold, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, tonight, the United States House is preparing to vote on the Equality Act, a controversial bill President Biden has been lobbying lawmakers to pass quickly. The measure, designed to overhaul the nation's civil rights laws to include LGBTQ Americans, would also expand legal protections for them. Many worry it will infringe on the rights of women and people of faith.
The measure heads to a vote over questions over renewed concern over censorship in the media and on big tech platforms. Amazon removed conservative author Dr. Ryan T. Anderson's best-selling book about the transgender movement without offering any notice or explanation.
It's not just big government that can be a threat to our liberties and ultimately to our flourishing, to our happiness. It appears that big tech can just be as much of a threat.
All right, here with us now is Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council. Tony, thanks for being here. The Equality Act is heading towards a vote. Some Republicans have responded with the Fairness for All Act. That's sort of a watered-down version of that. You oppose both, with growing support even among Republicans for LGBT rights. What is your solution?
Well, the solution is human rights. It's not just one segment of the society that we're going to give special rights to. Let's be clear what this does. The Equality Act provides about 60 amendments, 60 changes to about 10 different laws pertaining to civil rights. And what it does is it elevates a certain segment of our society, which is the LGBT community, maybe 5% of the population, the transgender, 0.08% or 0.8%. Of the population, not even 1% of the population. And so what we're going to do, we're going to force, number one, we're going to force our elementary school students, our high school students, our college students into situations where they have to use locker room showers, bathrooms with someone of the opposite sex. We're going to destroy women's sports in this process. Where's the fairness in that? Taking away parental rights, because now we're going to pit schools in what's being taught in the schools by the Biden administration, what's being forced upon these schools, is going to be juxtaposed to what parents want their children to understand as the values that they're sharing through their faith. Where's the fairness in that? There is no fairness. What we need to do is we need to allow people to continue to live their lives according to their faith. And if someone is deprived of their rights, then we deal with that. That's not happening in America today.
Conservative social commentator Tony, in that setup piece to this interview, Ryan Anderson responded to the recent shelving of his book, saying while he acknowledges it offers a critique against the trans movement, he also says it gets all the facts right and does not engage in fiery rhetoric. You say censoring his book is a threat to democracy.
It is. I mean, we may not be seeing flames right now, but this is book burning. This is what we've seen in times past. The Nazis did this. Now, this is not coming from the hands of government, but it's coming from the left, this is an orchestrated effort to try to purge any counter thought to the prevailing ideology of the left. And that is very dangerous. And this is designed to intimidate and to silence individuals. What's wrong with having a free flow of ideas and having dialogue and having debate? There was a time in this country when we debated these issues and we arrived at consensus. This is the path we're on with the left. This is going to fragment our society further. It is going to create greater hostility and conflict in the years ahead.
And Tony, you heard our last guest. What do you think of the idea that it's not just conservatives feeling discriminated against?
Well, it's more than that. There are a lot of people in this country. There are liberals who value freedom of speech. And when you're taking away from individuals the ability to speak and have dialogue and discussion, that's dangerous. There are people on the other side of issues that care deeply about our republic and the underlying principles that make us the nation we are. We need to preserve those and stand together to do that.
All right, Tony Perkins with the Family Research Council. Tony, thanks for being with us, and we'll be right back after the break.
Having sex before you're married is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Well, tonight, Georgia's governor is speaking out over coronavirus lockdowns.
That's right. He spoke with CBN's David Brody about why he wants the Peach State to be a sanctuary state for the faithful.
Well, Governor, tell us about this Faith Protection Act, something your administration is behind and something that's going to really help churches and other places of worship, obviously, especially as it relates to times of crisis and COVID specifically.
Well, you know, my goal is for us to be a sanctuary state, if you will, for people of faith. I think this pandemic has shown us that, you know, people will overreach, especially people in positions of power, and that's not good. I don't think in this republic that we have or in the state of Georgia, and certainly that really hasn't happened here, but looking around other states, it was concerning to me that we shouldn't have any governor or future governor be able to stop religious services. That's embedded in our Constitution. It's a fundamental right of this country, and I was glad to offer up to give, you know, that executive power that I've been given through a public health emergency to make sure we protect people of faith. Our churches and church leaders really worked with us during the pandemic, where we never had to shut down religious services. We asked them to help us be part of the solution, not part of the problem, by either going online, doing outdoor services, socially distancing, limiting the number of people that could worship, but we never shut anything down. And I'm proud to say that, and we don't want that to happen in the future, and that's what we're fighting for.
So what would this act basically do? It would curtail or restrict some of those powers that the governor may have in the future in dealing with crises like this or crises?
Yeah, it would just restrict being able to shut religious services down altogether. There still would be some flexibility to work, depending on what the situation was. I mean, if we have another global pandemic, which I hope the good Lord will spare us from in the future, but we did put some guidelines in and some regulations so churches could open up, good common sense things like social distancing, hand sanitizing, cleaning practices and things of that nature. We've kind of taken the view down here, David, is, we can do this. We got to work together to figure out how we do it. We got to work with our public health partners. We got to work with either the business or the religious institution or whatever entity it is to how to do that, but we know we can do it. We can't just stay sitting in our living room or our basement for months and months at a time. That is not healthy. That's not healthy for our mental health, and certainly people going to church and being able to gather or worship, whether it's in person or virtually, is healthy for people. It's healthy for their mindset, and it's just really the fabric of who we are, and we've done that responsibly here, and we want that to be the case in the future. We don't want to allow any person, including myself, to be able to weigh in that now or in the future like we saw in other states. And so that's why we're taking this action.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family, and collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app, a great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
Welcome back. After a year of feeling the impact of the COVID pandemic, new information tonight about how it's led to greater sexual exploitation.
The center investigating the frightening trend has just released its annual Dirty Dozen list. As Paul Strand shows us, it's clear that skyrocketing use of the internet contributed greatly.
We've known for years how pornography makes billions through the web. In looking at this year's National Center on Sexual Exploitation Dirty Dozen, the connection of giants like Amazon, Netflix, and Chromebooks to sexual exploitation should set off major alarms in homes across the country.
In a sad example of how the pandemic has put millions more children at risk of exposure to porn or being sexually exploited is the soaring use of Google Chromebooks for distance learning. But their safety features are often left turned off, or children find workarounds.
Parents and teachers often don't even realize that there's a problem until a student has shared pornography with another student, or they notice changes in their children.
Reddit calls itself the front page of the internet, but those releasing today's Dirty Dozen charge that Reddit acts more like a back page, as it serves as a hub where sex buyers find people to purchase and sexual predators distribute hardcore pornography as well as non-consensually share images. Amazon's high ranking this year is due to the amount of sexual-themed material sold by the retail giant and the nudity and sex on Amazon Prime Video. There's also an issue with the way children are often targeted on Amazon's gamers platform, Twitch.
The number of children on the platform are below the minimum legal age. There are frequent conversations between children and strangers, with strangers daring kids to do explicit acts or to share their contact information.
OnlyFans made the Dirty Dozen list because many young people thrown out of work by the pandemic now use OnlyFans to sell images or videos of their bodies to make fast cash. Nevada returns to the list because of its legalized brothels. And Netflix is there because of the amount of sexually graphic or degrading content it continues to make available. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Superbook fans, here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come with...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
When snow and power outages hit parts of the country last week, shelter pets were in danger of losing their temporary home.
That is right, Tara, and that is until the anti-animal cruelty group APSCA swooped in with their Wings of Rescue program, carrying 400 cats and dogs to safety to states in the Northeast.
We've got a lot of cuties on board today. So this was our first flight today. We have a second one going out here shortly.
St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center in New Jersey received dozens of cats and dogs, while a shelter in Pennsylvania took in over 200 with an adoption event last weekend. Hundreds of fur babies now have a chance at a forever home on the East Coast, and most have already been adopted.
All right, and that's great to all the humans who jumped in and did that as well.
That's right.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great night.